Welcome everybody to today's webinar. We got a lot of Johns on here today, so we'll try not to get them too confused.
Call
But
everybody by their
today we're
last name.
talking about, yeah, I have to go by the last names over here so we don't get to. But first of all, I would like to thank John Starkey joining us today. As you hear right now, he has a shop out in Hawaii, and it's a very successful shop. And he's spending a week right now coming in to do some training at Drive, but also do a little bit of fun time for himself. And he's got his shop very operational. He can come and go as he pleases. His shop's run, and part of that is by the culture that he's built in here. So that's why we asked John to come in here today, because he's a prime example of what happens when you put the right culture into your shop. So we'll kind of get started here today going over the culture and everything. We're going to go through 8 different points today of different culture points. We're going to break them down, talk about them, and get some input from John on exactly, how that affected his shop when he put those different things in. So before we get started here, I have one quick announcement. If you haven't already taken the opportunity to register for our Drive Expo, we have a big expo coming up in September 14th through 17th in Vegas. Carolyn will put links into our chat, I'm sure, if you haven't registered, where you can get an opportunity to register for it. We're talking about 4 days of industry leaders, topics, new things going on in the industry, special management networking, and training sessions all during this expo over here. So something you want to get registered for and show up for. You don't want to miss it. It's a great event. A lot of advice and a lot of knowledge that you can pull out of this expo. So we'll go right into the presentation here. There's 8 different key elements of building up a winning team and getting them and building that culture into your shop. And we use culture in many different ways. But I want to start off by saying the culture that you set in your shop isn't just one thing. It's everything. It's how you do business. It's how you treat your customers, how you interact with your employees, how your employees interact with you, how your employees interact with your customers. It's how you got things, systems and procedures set up. What is your shop known for? And that could be good or bad, depending on if you're recruiting and trying to get customers in. So there's things that we want to look at on how do you start building that culture from the ground up and creating that culture where everybody wants to come to work for you. Your customers want to bring their cars in to you. You made your shop a destination point. And that's the big thing. If you make your shop a destination point, you will actually attract a lot more people and things will run a lot smoother. Now, one of the first things that we start with, and we've talked about this quite a bit, but it's having a common goal. Setting your goals for your shop and being able to expand on those goals and talk to your employees and get them to buy in on your goals that you set. As the owner, you've got to be setting the goals. You got to be setting the targets. You got to be setting, where's this ship going? Where's the path we're going to take? How are we going to get there? And when you set a goal for your shop, and then you can sit down with each of your employees and find out what their personal goals are and find it a way to tie it into the shop goals, it makes a big difference. Now, John, I know you speak to your team about goals quite a bit, and you work with them on goals themselves. Now, talk about what goals does for your business.
Well, I think, like you said, it's very, very important that the employees understand your personal goals, because that's the direction the shop is going. And if they're not on board with that, it's not going to work to begin with. Like if you want to grow and you want to have a higher tech efficiency rate, like I know a lot of guys that run at 60% tech efficiency. We're running closer to 120. My goal is 140. And if all my technicians aren't on board with that, there's going to be a problem. So that's one goal that is very, very important to me. It's not just a financial goal, because that tech efficiency will bring you to that financial goal, whatever it is. But also we have a very good understanding of each of our technicians' goals. So if I have a technician who's a career technician, and he's got a young family and he wants to someday buy a house, and he wants to do things in his life, I need to understand that as the owner, because I need to make sure that happens. If I can make that happen for him, he has no reason to leave. If I can't make that happen, he's always going to be looking for something better. And then you get some of these young kids that it's just a stepping stone. They actually don't even want to stay in the automotive industry. they just want a job while they're doing whatever. They're a lube tech, and that's where it ends, you know. So you need to really understand that as a business owner, I think.
Yeah, I think it's really key to understanding it, but what you say is getting to know your employees and what their personal goals are too. And I'll give an example over there. Years ago, at my shop, I had a technician that we couldn't get him to motivate, we couldn't get him to build the hours we want. So I sat down one time and had a long talk with him. And when I started having this talk with him, he really didn't have a personal goal. He was just, like you said, just a job until something else came along, or until he figured out what he wanted to do in life. But I sat down with him and I says, okay, look, let's just talk about a couple things here. I says, look, you're very young. You have the potential to make 100 grand a year in our shop with what we're paying you, and if you just bill out the hours. Now, let me ask you a question. When you go out with Friday night with all your friends and everything, would you consider that being, what do you think they make as a personal income? And he says they probably make about 30, $40,000. And I says, okay, now how would it make you feel if you were in that position where you knew you were making $100,000? You could treat your friends to dinner, you could do things with them, and how does that do for you? And it kind of changed his perspective on it. But it wasn't just that. I asked him, he had a girlfriend, he was going to get married here soon. So we talked about how if he actually produced and made his hours, what that would do for his home personal life. And he had, when I found out through this, he had a goal of buying a new vehicle. He'd never owned a new vehicle in his life. He had always bought used vehicles and fixed them up and made them work. And so I showed him out and laid out a plan how he could afford that new vehicle. And I'll tell you what, we set that goal, but we had to expand on that, because within a couple months, he started billing 60 hours a week, no problem. He was doing great with all the work in the shop, no comebacks and everything. And he made that goal, and he went up to the local Chevy dealership and drove up to the shop one day in a brand new vehicle on a Monday morning. And he says, look, you helped me reach this goal. I've got a new vehicle and I can afford it. But now I was like, okay, now I knew I had him trapped, because he had a vehicle payment and he had to stay with us and keep that job so he could keep that payment going. So, there's certain things, but sitting down and expanding with your team on what their personal goals is can be very big. And I've seen different shop owners with different things. I've seen guys having a goal just to take their wife on a vacation. Some guys have bigger goals to buy a house. There's many different things, but when you establish that with them and tie their production back to how they can achieve their goal, put bonus plans in that help, you start getting them focused on that common goal, and everybody's working for the common goal. It actually is, your employees start taking buy-in to the business and they start running toward that goal, and you don't have to go push that goal every day. They go for it naturally. So another big piece that we talk about at Drive all the time is knowing, when you're talking about setting goals and everything, look, we go through this pyramid here, and on the top is the owner. You're putting the vision, the playbook, the long range planning together for it. You have your management that's in the middle that makes sure that they execute the day-to-day operations, enforce the policies and stuff like that. And then you have your crew at the bottom of the pyramid that actually does the duties and the jobs on here. But this is something to know over here. As a lot of owners go in here, you guys are not just the owners in your shop. You're the mechanic, you're the service advisor, you're the parts guy, you're the problem solver, you're the HR person. There's a lot of things that actually get put on your plates in a smaller business. And I just want to talk about this a little bit because, John, you started a little different than most people do in the industry. You started off without a mechanical background, if I'm correct on this, and you expanded into this shop that does this. So you didn't get really sucked into working on the cars. But how important is you to be the owner and wear just that top hat and hire the people underneath you to handle those other spots?
Yeah, a lot of people have asked me, like, how did you grow that business so fast? You know, we're a $3 million a year shop, you know, and as you see, I don't, you know, I'm not in the shop. I just surrounded myself with really good people. I didn't know what I was doing. In fact, when I joined your company, Drive, I had no idea. I was terrified because I was probably bankrupt at the time by definition, but I knew that, you know, I had something good. I had a lot of volume. You know, we were doing about 1.5 million or so in business, but I had guys billing 40 hours a month. You know, forget about a week. They were doing that in a month, and I have a great manager now. His name's Zach. He's been with me from day one, and he's been by my side and he's got a technical background. He can write, he can work on the cars, and between me trying to focus on steering the ship and him, really running the back and making sure that all the work was getting done. And then I was learning about things like tech efficiency, gross margin, net profit, everything that goes into your P&L, all the stats. And then I hit the road and I started going to, a lot of shops and seeing what they're doing. And he enabled me. And this is a really, really big piece of building a team is trust. And you have to be able to trust your people. And what I mean by that with Zach is I trust him 100%. He runs that business. I mean, I would leave my kids with him. He's a good guy, and if you cannot trust your employees, if you always feel like you have to be looking over their shoulder to manage them, then those aren't the employees that you want. And it's scary to fire people, because you think I have to have this guy, especially your A techs and B techs. It's like these are the money producer guys, but you've got to be able to trust your team. If you can't trust your team, you need to constantly be turning those guys to get a team that you can trust. That's a huge part of the success of our shop.
Yeah, and John, you brought up a big thing is being able to trust your guys, and actually kind of takes me into one of the next topics that we're going to talk to, one of the next elements of a winning team, and that's that your team actually knows what their position is. And that's so common in there because to build that trust, they have to know what their position is and what's expected of them on here.
Yeah.
So getting one of the big things is getting job descriptions and letting your employees clearly know what that is, what's expected from the position, what is the level of production that you want out of them, what are their responsibilities as a team member, what is expected as a team member in the shop. Because John, you brought up trust over here, but a lot of times what I see, we misline things. We said I can't trust this employee because they don't do this, or they didn't prove this to me, or they didn't prove that to me. Trust is kind of a two-way street, and you got to give them all the tools and make sure they know their job and what's expected of them. Then they'll display more of that trust values that you're looking for in that position. But it's often too common. I've seen so many people start up with, here, you're a technician for my shop, roll your toolbox in, and here's your first job. And that's about all they know about their expectations, is that they're just going to go complete that next job. And there's a lot more in that job description than most people think about. Of course, you're going to have, this is when I want you to show up. This is your hours that you're going to work. But also, what about the quality of work they produce? What are you expecting out of them when they produce something? How are you expecting them to treat the shop equipment? How does the workflow go through the shop? This is all part of that job description that they need to follow and understand.
Yeah, one of the things I really spent a lot of my time working on is my youngest guys, because my youngest guys are my C techs. I say young, they're not youngest necessarily by age, but they're the youngest as far as experience. And I spent a lot of time with Zach going over, like, these guys are doing 25 to 30. Some weeks they'll hit 40, 42, 43. But how do I get them to that level of productivity every single week? What is it in my shop that is blocking them from getting to that level of productivity? Because if I can get them up to 40, 45 hours, we will be inching much closer to that 140% tech efficiency rate that I'm shooting for. I'm a flat rate shop, I don't pay anybody hourly in the back. So these guys have a pretty heavy incentive to produce, and I know they need to make money. But if I'm the one blocking them from producing because either they're not working, smoothly with my writers, or we've got I'm in Hawaii, we have no space. So do we have a problem moving the cars around? Is the shop too cluttered? What is the problem? And I found out recently that one of the big problems we had was I needed a lube tech, which was really an eye opener to me. I need the lowest paid employee in a shop, a lube tech. And if I can get a lube tech, it alleviates all of those oil changes that we have to do to that person, and it'll allow my C techs to do more lucrative work for themselves. Because let's face it, to make money on oil changes in this industry is very, very difficult, especially where I live. So, I've done that. I hired a lube tech, and their hours have been going up slowly, but I like to focus on that. I don't ever want to be the barrier to my employees' success. If they're not successful, it's got to lay back on their shoulders, not on mine and my shops.
You just brought up a good point about the loop tech in there. By hiring a loop tech that's a lower paid entry level position into the shop, it frees up your A techs, B techs, and C techs to do other jobs on there. That in itself creates a better culture for the shop. It actually raises their morale in a lot of ways because they don't have to stop to do that oil change that is time consuming but doesn't really show up as a bonus, or depends on how their pay systems and stuff like that are. So now they're really focused on the type of work that they're skilled at.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
Also going into job descriptions real quick before we move forward is, look, Drive's created what we call our playbook app, and we have that. If you want to get more information on it, you can contact us. We'll give you some information to contact us. But as you can see, this app goes through here and it starts breaking down your job descriptions to your bookkeeper, body technicians, parts people, and it has templates, and you expand upon those templates and customize it to your shop. But you can build very detailed job descriptions that you can issue through this app to the employee when they're hired, and have them read, check out on it, and make sure that they understand it. You can ask them questions about it, but all this stuff helps get people on the same page. And that's what a lot we're talking about here is John, is when he sits down and discovers that, hey, we need a lube tech, it wasn't because he just stumbled across it or heard it from another shop owner. It's that communication that he had with his shop guys and his technicians in the shop saying, and his manager saying, if we did this, it would improve things. And that open discussion is very important in the culture of your shop. If you're always a dictator and don't take in advice from your employees and act upon that, or allow them to give you advice all the time and never do anything with that advice that they give you, that can create a bad culture. So one of the big things, like John, we kind of go out of order on this, but John, you just touched on it. It's an important part of building that trust factor and that culture within your shop by having that open dialogue and then doing action after that.
Yeah, I always want the guys to feel like they can come to me or Zach with any type of a problem or issue that they're having, and I'm trying to always build speed into the shop. That's very, very important for us. So I think I have that with my guys.
Correct. And so, this also goes into what we were talking about there, but each team member understands how their actions and performance affects everybody else in the shop. My question is, how many of you have a weekly meeting and talk about things that didn't go right and how you could prevent that from happening again? A lot of times things happen in a shop and they continue to happen in a shop and create that culture, that vibe that is negative or not so great for the shop, just because that open dialogue's not there. Having a safe place has got to be safe. It isn't coming and attack somebody because they didn't do their job. It's got to be explained in the thing. The service advisor can explain, if you didn't do a complete inspection on this vehicle and then you find things later on at 5 o'clock at the end of the day when the customer is trying to pick up the car, that causes a problem for me up in the front. So this is why we need to do inspections. Vice versa, it can be the other way around, where the technician goes, if I turn in a parts ordering slip and you take 3 hours to get those parts order, I'm held up in my bay and it's causing me problems because I have to push vehicles in and out instead of working on them. So those are just some couple examples. And John, you may have many others, but being able to sit down and get the team to understand how each person's job is important and how their actions can affect the whole day in the shop is a very big key to the culture in the shop.
Yeah, I even started that with my shop helper to explain to him how he plays such a key role in the success of the shop. It's like you could look at it like, oh, this guy just cleans the shop, or you could look at it like, hey, this guy has a ton to do with our flow and our ability to find things right away when we're looking for them. So it's a very important part of the shop, and that's very important for people to understand.
Yes, very much. And that leads us to the fourth point here, everybody. And that's, everybody knows what the other player's position is and what they do. How many times have you seen it? A new employee walks in and it'll be weeks down the road before they discover who's in charge of ordering the parts. So they just, they think, oh, we turn this slip in and don't know who's doing doing it or who's involved with it. And there's many other parts of the job that people in the business don't understand. You may have a bookkeeper or secretary up in the front that's entering numbers and stuff, but do your other team members know exactly what their position is and how it plays in the overall role of the business? Because each person's valuable, as John said, even that shop helper that's cleaning up the shop and picking up tools and making it organized like that, a janitor, there's parts people, there's all these different positions in here, but making sure you have a clear description of how everything flows through the shop. And this is just one diagram that we have up here, but this is how the customer flows through the shop right here, making sure employees understand that. They come in, they meet the receptionist, they may go to the service advisor, then the car goes to service, quality control, cashier, and then the final one is PR, which is marketing to get them to come back again. So there's a whole flow line there that each one of your employees need to understand. And when they do, and they understand these completely, it raises that culture value in your shop. Now, the next key element that we want to go over is, drill and practice procedures. I find this one so much. How many of you, maybe if I show of hands over in Kim, how many of you put policies and procedures together for everything that happens in your shop right now? I know that it's something people are continually working on, but updating them, keeping them current, things change, systems change, and keeping them current. Yeah, but these policies and procedures in your shop are key to your business, and making sure your employees understand these and practice them and drill them. So many times we issue policies and procedures, but we don't practice them, we don't drill them, we don't walk our employees through them. We just hand them a piece of paper, tell them to read it, and expect them to follow it. That's not how it works. This is part of your weekly team meetings, is when you introduce new practices and policies and procedures, is you drill and get them used to it. Now, John, I know you started off, and I know we coached you through putting a lot of policies and procedures in and how to implement them. How did that change your business?
Yeah, it's helped a lot. In fact, I'm going through the playbook apprenticeship right now with Carla, and that's a real eye-opening experience because you realize what you don't have in place. You're looking at a lot of templates. You're looking at other people who share theirs with you, and it's like, oh gosh, I never even thought of that. One of the things that came to light was, in our shop we had a lot of miscommunication going on, and I'd ask, well, why is this car still here? And a tech would say, "Oh, I've been waiting for a part for a week." So I go to the writer, and it's like, "What's up with this?" And he goes, "Well, I didn't know he needed that part." So what we implemented was daily hotshot meetings. My manager Zach, he talks to every single employee in the morning for no more than 5 minutes. Most of the time, it's 1 or 2 minutes, and he's taking notes on that conversation he has with them. And then he goes to the next employee, the next employee, the next employee. Then he circles back and he addresses every single potential issue we might have or what's going well. And then he makes a list of all the cars we have going out that day in the order of importance. And this is just a policy, and this is a procedure actually that we go through, is how do we make sure that we're getting these cars out in a timely manner? And I tell you what, our efficiency, it shot up probably another 10 or 15% because of it. And it was just that little thing that we implemented that takes such little effort. But we're touching 200 work orders a week, and 80 or so, 70 to 80 of those are big tickets, and a lot of those are safety checks that we do for the state. We have a state mandated safety inspection everybody has to do every year, but it's so important to have organization and communication. If you're missing that, you're missing the boat. You're not going to ever have over 100% efficiency. You're always going to be frustrated, and you'll struggle, and your staff will struggle because they don't, the foundation and the layout of the shop is up to the owner. It's 100% up to that owner to implement that. It's up to the team to put it together. Like what works in my shop may or may not work in somebody else's shop. So as a group, you collectively put together, hey, these are the policies, these are the procedures that we're going to operate by, and everybody's going to stick to it. And that's one thing they teach you in the apprenticeship classes. When you're writing a policy and procedure, it's not just you throwing it on paper, it's your team agreeing to how we're going to operate, because that may not be the best way. And it might be a way I came up with, but it might not be the best way. And if they have input, they're much more likely to follow your lead as opposed to you mandating how it's going to run.
Correct. And, I want everybody to understand when it comes to policies and procedures here in there, if you have an employee that's not following a particular policy and procedure, is usually of one of two reasons. One, they don't understand it and didn't understand the policy and they need to be educated on it. And two, they disagree with the policy, so they won't follow it no matter what. And until you get their agreement on following that policy or adapting that policy to get their agreement, it will never be followed. So that it's a lot of communication effort that has to be put in with your team to make sure that I understand the policy, I agree with the policy, and I agree to follow the policy. And if you get those three things all in place, the policies and procedures become very big, and they become a code. It becomes a moral code for the shop is what it does, and everybody operates on it. And you'll have team members that'll call each other out on it and say, hey, we have a policy. The next key point that we want to talk about building the great culture in your shop is knowing how to motivate your team members. There's many different reasons for motivation in a team. And, I look at this, there's a pyramid of motivation, and each one of these, the very top of that pyramid is the highest level of motivation that a person can have. And most people have it in it, but that's creating value for others. When you have somebody that's doing something for others, it's a mission. It's motivation. They do more of it. They are engaged with it. And that's what you need to try to get everybody to, is how do we help others and get them onto that vibe? But there's also below that, there's self-improvement. Somebody that's trying to improve, make themselves better. They're pretty motivated. So that's another piece in there. Being a member of the team, right in the center of this pyramid right here. When you involve them and make them an active member of the team and they are producing for the team, other type of motivation. But now when you get down to the bottom sides over there, money's one of the least push one there for motivation. Yes, everybody's got to make a paycheck. They got to make a living, but it's one of the least things that motivate people. We always think money's what motivates everybody, but you need to tap into those other pieces there. What self-improvement, doing things for other, being part of a team is going to be a higher motivational factor than just the money. And then you may have team members that only do things for themselves, and you got to work with them and get them to where they're at that higher level of the pyramid. And John, I know your team, you've seen this in action in your team.
Oh yeah. Well, so I'm actually going through that right now. Exactly what you're talking about. So my lead tech, he gets pulled off. Remember, everybody's flat rate, so it's his time, right? So he gets pulled off of jobs, and 1 week, I think it was 2 weeks ago, his hours really slumped. Like he was below 40, which is very rare. He's normally up between 60 and 80. And I talked to my manager about it, and I said, "Gosh, what happened? It looks like Jerry was there every day." And what's happening is he's getting pulled off of his jobs so that the younger technician, he can help the younger technicians. So I was talking to, in fact, I think I was talking to Carla about this, my coach, and she was saying, you've got too many people reporting to Zach. You need to, I have 15 employees and they all report to him, right? So she said, what you need to do is you need to have a lead writer and a lead technician. So I went to this individual, his name's Jerry, and I said, Jerry, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? And I'm going to attach hours to it. These are going to be just like you build these hours, whatever it is. Is it 10 hours? Is it 15 hours? Is it 13 hours? What is it a week that you need to help these guys? Because the time that I'm losing because these younger guys are getting stuck is way more than whatever I'm going to pay him. And he's got the most amazing, he is that one, as we call a unicorn, where it's like, you think these guys don't exist. Amazing personality, amazing talent, and he's in his early 30s, and he's a wonderful person to have around. But I have to make sure he's successful. The only way he's going to be successful, he's got 3 young girls, they're all under 5, is he's got to make money. And the way he's got to make money is I have to put together a program for him where he can be not just my technician, but he's an educator. And it makes him feel better because he's helping the young guys out. The young guys are billing more hours. We make more money as a shop. It's just a win-win all the way around. And we're actually in the process of doing exactly that right now. And it's pretty exciting to watch as it comes to fruition. You know, it's like, how do you make a better shop? And you always have to be working on that. That's an owner's job. How do you make it better? How do you make it faster? How do you make it a happier place to work?
Yes, very key to that. And then that takes us to one of our next points, which is, a big thing of winning teams and building that culture in there is that they know their KPIs and what they're responsible for, and you're reviewing those on a weekly basis. And
Hmm.
I hope that everybody on here does that. But going over your build hours with your technicians, your sales with your service advisor, the number of cars, your car count, your average RO, I can just sit here and rattle KPIs off. And now, John, when you first started with Drive, there's probably a few KPIs you checked. Probably your main one was what was in the bank account, and
That
how
was the
many do
only
you
one I
track?
knew.
And how many do you track today?
Oh gosh, I've got so many things I track today, but so I use Techmetric, and I have some 75, 78-inch screens in my shop. I have two of them. We're divided by a wall, so we have basically two bays. And I have the guys hourly stat their build hours on those screens, and it refreshes every 5 minutes. So they constantly know exactly where they're at, and they know where everybody else is at. So what we'll do is we'll set some goals and we'll try to achieve those goals. And they like to kind of poke at each other and see who's in the lead and whatnot. I have a pretty competitive group, and we're putting together some fun games and things for them. And one of the guys that's in my 20 group with you guys, that's a peer group for those who don't know. There's seven of us in there. You guys call it the top 20. He brought his whole team to Hawaii because they hit a goal that they set for the year, and he paid for almost that entire trip. His name's Dennis Goodhue, and it was neat to see him take one of the KPIs and his team. That's a huge goal, and he said that he made so much money even after paying for the trip to Hawaii. So it's because his team understood what the goal was. If you don't share those goals, those landmark achievements that you make as a company, and reward your team for it, then you're not, I don't know, you're just not setting the standard of the shop to be successful. You're not sharing with your guys what is the definition of success in your shop. They may think they're doing a great job. You may think they're doing a horrible job because you don't communicate the KPIs with them. You don't communicate the expectations. They're there doing a job. They get a paycheck. Obviously, you're paying the bills. The lights are on, and they think everything is great. And I think that it comes down to communication. It comes down to setting team goals that are achievable. Those goals have to be achievable, because sometimes you can set some crazy goals and your team's like, we're never going to hit that anyway. This place has never hit that. But then you set the goal, you tell them how you're going to hit the goal, and you guys go after it as a team, and it's fun. It's really fun when you hit these goals. We've done it numerous times. We try to build 300 hours a week in my shop. We used to do it a lot, then we started struggling to get there. Now we're back up there again. So it's fun, and my team understands what we're trying to achieve.
Okay, that's a very big point. And like I said, just sharing and letting everybody know what KPIs they're responsible for, how it affects their job, and what it means when these go uptrending, and make a game out of it. A lot of times people love games to make things go in a better thing. So if you put it on paper and say, let's make this graph go straight up, here's the game. And you'll be surprised what will happen on there.
Yeah,
And then one
for
of our
sure.
last points to building that winning culture in your team is putting a team that gets along, and they love to help each other. In my shop, we put a thing in a policy in that really changed a lot of things in the shop. And it was simple. It was a $25 gift card at the end of the week for employee of the week. And the employee got a front row parking spot at the shop. And what it was is every employee had to vote for somebody that made their job easier during the week, and you couldn't vote for yourself. So you'd be surprised how something just that simple made a big difference. They would say, a technician seeing another one struggling, or a service writer that has customers in front of them and the phone's ringing, where a technician's just standing there waiting for authorization on something. Maybe they pick up the phone and talk to a customer for a second, or they possibly step in and run interference and keep the customers entertained that are waiting in line until the service advisor can get to them. Those things all make a difference in your shop when your team works together. When you see a team member struggling and they help each other out, it makes that culture so much better. But also on the reverse side of this, if you're having some problems with your culture and having problems with keeping employees and stuff, I always tell everybody, look to see if you have that tiger in the shop. And what I mean by that is you can have that one employee that to you looks really good on paper. They bill a lot of hours, but in the back, when you're not there, they're mean. They run off other techs. They cause problems. And it's not in front of you that this all happens, but nobody will tell you about it because they think this person's too valuable in the shop or that you won't respond to it. And sometimes I hate to say this, sometimes you got to take a good look at yourself and make sure you, the shop owner's not the tiger either. What's your reputation as a boss? How do you treat your employees? And how's that viewpoint across the employees? There's employee surveys, anonymous surveys you can do where you can fill them out, get them, tell them they can fill these out, and survey your employees and tell them you don't have to put your name to it. I don't care who says it. I just want to know the truth about things. Sometimes that can be eye-opening to what you find out about the people working within your business and how they can affect you. Now, John, I don't know if you've ever had that tiger in your shop.
Oh yeah, I have. And I gotta thank Zach for the team we have today because I'm the type of person I can't fire anybody. But Zach went in and he fired people I liked, and it was really hard to watch and it was hard for me. I mean, I had an employee, 60 years old. I took him out for dinner. He was billing 60 hours every week, but he was that guy that wasn't fixing a lot of things, which it's hard for me to understand that not being a technician. How could you bill so many hours, but you're not actually fixing things? And Zach was telling me, "Hey, I'm having problems with him. I'm having problems with him." And I was kind of like head in the sand, I'm like, the guy's going 60 hours a week. He's there at 6:30 every day, setting up the shop. He stays till 5:30. He tears it all down. I said, "We can't." I'm thinking to myself, "I can't operate without this guy." And Zach kept telling me, "I have problems with this guy. I have problems with this guy." And then it was really sad. It was his 60th birthday. I take him out to dinner, and I didn't know this, but the next morning Zach fired him. And I had no idea. And my employees were like, "What was that, his last supper?" And I didn't do that by intent at all. I had no idea he was going to fire him. But he got to a point where he couldn't work with him anymore. And if you can't work with somebody, regardless of what the owner thinks that they're doing, Zach's view of this guy was he's hurt, he's destroying the shop. He's destroying the culture because all these cars that he's not fixing, my lead tech has to go back in and spend his time. And now I'm paying two guys to fix the cars. And that was Zach's problem was, look, he's billing 60, but you don't understand what's going on here. And, I would have never fired that guy. I would have never fired him. But, having Zach there as a second set of eyes and analyzing like, who's the starting lineup here? You got to have all starters on your team. You don't have enough positions to have guys who come in off the bench. Everybody has to be a starter, and we have an absolute wonderful team now. And I would be really surprised if we don't ride this team out for quite some time.
Yeah, and now, John, I have a question just on that piece there. When you did make the decision, or Zach made the decision, let that guy go, how did that change things in the back of the shop with the other techs?
Oh, I tell you, it's been pretty amazing. Jerry, my guy who's going to be my lead tech, he really stepped up because he kind of has his head down and do his jobs, and he was billing a lot of hours. But then this other guy was kind of like trying to teach the young kids how to do things, but yet he couldn't do it himself, which I didn't know. I'm not a technician. I thought he was doing a good job leading these young guys, almost like an uncle would. But then when he left and the more senior guys step in, now we're getting ready to launch the NAPA apprenticeship program and really get these guys on a path for success. You only get to go through life once. It's really important if you're going to train your crew to train them properly and make sure that they all get every opportunity to achieve their goals, and you don't waste any time because it's their life, and you want them to be a great tech, and a lot of them want to become a great tech. But a lot of owners, they don't give their guys the opportunity, the education, the opportunity it takes to become a great tech. You could sit there and complain. Oh, these guys can't do this. Oh, they do this wrong. That's your own fault. You have to look in the mirror and understand that you as the owner are the problem. You're not the solution. If you're not getting these guys to a level where they're good, then it's your own fault because you either don't have time because you're too busy working on cars yourself, or you don't have the resources, you're not financially set, you're not putting money into your reserves, you're not setting your labor rate may be way too low, so you can't even raise money. You could have all kinds of problems in your shop that are preventing you from becoming, a tier 4 shop, or 5 or 6 or whatever you want to become.
John, it's kind of funny. I think you hadn't even seen in my presentation. I asked you to be my guest on here, and you like led me into the wrapping up this webinar. Now we'll take questions here in just a few minutes from everybody. But John, you just mentioned something. Sometimes there's things that are going on in your shop that you can't see because you're in the day-to-day operations and you can't do it. Now, for more information, you can click this QR code, or in the chat, we'll put links, but we have a shop business analysis that we do at shop. If you're not working with Drive and you would like to know, hey, what are my strong points? What are my weak points? What's going on in the shop? What improvements could I make to make my shop more productive, make more money, make it easier to run, get to that operational stage 4, that high level of operation in your shop? You want to know where I'm at now and how do I get there? That's what the shop business analysis was designed for. Basically, we go through, we interview you, we get your numbers, we go through all kinds of different things in your shop. We evaluate your online presence, your marketing actions, and then we come back and give you about a 2 to 3 hour presentation one-on-one with a master coach showing you how to make your business better. And it's a very cost effective. I mean, we do this for $250. It's a very cost effective thing. It's a one-time service. If it's something you're interested into, please drop your name in the chat, raise your hand, let us know, or click one of the links and you can sign up online to do these. It's just something that can really help your business excel, and it just takes a little bit of time to do things, but we do the majority of the work and help you get that business going for you. Now, moving on to that, I know we have quite a few people here, but I want to open the floor for questions. I want to appreciate every one of you for attending today. And John and I'll stick on here for a few minutes and answer questions that you may have, problems that you're running into. We're here to help.
Yeah, Dave, just on that point, I think what it is, a lot of the problems with shops, like I get some visitors that come over, they find me on, some of the Facebook forums out there, and they come to Hawaii and they're like, "Hey, I'm in Hawaii. I'd love to swing by and meet you and talk to you." And some of these guys have pretty successful operations, but when I start drilling down on the stats of their shop, they'll pull out a sheet and show me things, and I'm like, well, you have all the important numbers here, but you don't know the calculations or where that fits into. Is it good or is it bad? Like, if you don't understand your gross margin, if you don't understand your technician efficiency, if you don't understand how much per hour does my shop have to make in gross profit for me to be successful? How do I measure my technicians? How do my technicians stack up against shops across the United States? You may be in your market there and you may feel like you're on an island. I'm literally on an island. I'm in Hawaii, but you may feel like you're alone in all of this. And it's really important to understand that there are tons of numbers out there in the matrix on how do you know if you're successful or not. If you tell me, oh, my gross margin's 75%, I'm going to tell you that just sounds off to me. That's way off. And Dave, that either
Yeah.
something's either missing out of that number, you're underpaying your people, or you're overcharging your customers. That number doesn't make sense because there's a happy spot in there where, okay, I'm operating at this efficiency and I'm doing this, and this is why I'm successful. This is, I can, if my gross profit, if my gross revenue is this number, then I should be making this number. And that's what you guys teach people, is how to get there. Because a tertiary market, some of these markets that you guys have, like, 5,000 people in your market. I have 1 million in mine. So you guys really have to have a great reputation in your market. And that is the most important thing, because if your name gets muddied out there goes your business, right? So I think understanding how to operate your business is just so important. And then, of course, finding technicians, we talk about that all the time, and there's different ways to attract good talent. But if anybody has any questions, we're definitely open to help. We have a quiet group.
I think we got them thinking right now, John. A lot
Yeah,
of
well, it
thinking
is.
about what I got to do. And that's a key thing about the shop business analysis on there. It's helping you find the areas that will most improve your business. That's what we're here to do. It's not about making you make changes you don't want to make, making you operate your business in a different way, but it's training you on what do these numbers mean, how do they affect it, and what if you made a small adjustment here or small adjustment there. And some of these small adjustments could bring you a couple more build hours per tech per week, bring you in 2 or 3 more cars a week, save you 3 or 4 hours of stress each day. There's a lot of different things that shop owners have to go through. Trying to make money is one of them, having free time's another one, but how stressful is your job? It shouldn't be stressful is what we believe. It shouldn't be where you wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, I got to go to the shop." It's got to be, "Yes, I get to go to the shop today." Or,
Mm.
I'm going to go see what's changed in the shop because I haven't been in to see my managers in a while. That's a new day when you get to that point. And I know that, and John, you're kind of experiencing that right now. But I walked into my shop. I hadn't been into it. Of course, I had seen things going on. I see reports. I got daily reports, talk to my managers daily and everything else. But I walked into the shop after a couple months one time, and they had hired a new service advisor, and they treated me like a customer, didn't even know who I was. And
Yeah.
it's a great feeling in one way, but it was also a bad feeling the other, because I was like, okay, I know you had training and orientation and everything. And part of that was going to go to the website and explore the website. And my picture's all over the website. You should recognize me.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. I went into a shop yesterday. I had a free day out here. My friend's a doctor and he had a couple surgeries to do. He's a heart doctor. So I had a free day. So I drove up to Ventura and I went to a shop up there. And there's two big things I took away from that visit. And I think that if I implement those two things, I think within 2 years we're going to do 4.5 million. So, one thing you guys teach us is the owner should net 20%. So I don't know if, I'm sure you guys in this group would love to have a $300,000 a year pay increase. And I know for a fact that if I do those, they're big things, they're really big things that one of them I've been trying to do, but he was teaching me the details of how to do it. It's basically integrating auto vitals with Techmetric. So, the DVIs, right? And he gave me some examples of some of the DVIs they did. They are unbelievable the way they do them. They're so perfect, so spot on. The other thing was he has a lot of lifts that they actually dug the concrete out and set them level at ground level, roll over. You can roll right over top of them. So I'm going to add about 4 or 5 more lifts into my shop that way, just digging them into the concrete. I never really thought about that. I thought, if I put up post lifts, 2 post lifts, they're going to be in the way, whatever. But it's like I looked at how he operates and talked to his staff about how they work with that. And those two things, it just seems like, okay, well, that's pretty simple. That's obvious, right? It's not obvious. Neither one of those are really obvious because I'd never seen the end result of Auto Vitals integrated with Techmetric. And it's those things that I spend all my time doing. I'm hardly ever in my shop anymore. I'm out trying to figure out how to make it a better, more lucrative for everybody. If I can make my guys more money, by default, I make more money. I got the idea to put AC in my shop. We're actually putting AC in right now. We're going to be the only shop in Hawaii with air conditioning in the bays. I mean, how's that going to be for marketing to the best technicians out here? It's hot out here in the summer. It's very hot. If you guys have ever been to Hawaii in the summertime, it's not quite as bad as Florida or Texas, with the humidity level, but it's going to make a huge difference for my guys. And these little things that you pick up along the way make it so that you can be an owner, because the position of being an owner of a shop and the position of being a mechanic or technician, whatever you want to call them, or a service advisor are different. They are different careers, they're different positions. And it is very, very difficult for somebody to do both well.
Agreed on there. So I know we've taken up almost an hour of everybody's time here. Any questions before we sign off? And once again, John, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it. You've done such a wonderful job with your shop, and I just always look forward to seeing what's new when it's talking to John, what new ideas he has. So
Yeah,
thank you
and
for joining us today.
I'm at Starkey's Auto Repair in Honolulu. So Ringo Starr, that was his real name, was Starkey. So if you just remember that, and Hawaii, you can, anybody's always welcome to hit me up. I love answering questions because coming into this industry with absolutely no experience. I had never been in a shop before I bought mine in August of 2019. There's a whole story behind that that I could spend all day talking about, but it's been everything I've done, I've learned from somebody else. Nothing, I knew nothing. I didn't even know if I should tuck my shirt in or wear it out. Those button down shirts that you guys wear. It's like I was just clueless. So learning from others is truly a key to success.
Okay. And does any of our other Johns or Steve or Chris have any questions for us today, or Kevin? All right. Well, thank you everybody for attending today. And like I said, if you need help, talk to your drive consultant. If you don't have a drive consultant, please check out the SBA, because I think it's something that you would find very valuable for your shop, and it'll help you get going in the right direction. That's where I see the SBA. It'll help you turn things around and get you going in the right direction. That's what we do here at Drive, and why we do what we do. So thank you everybody for tuning in today. And once again, thanks again, John, and I look forward to
Thanks for
seeing
having
you
me.
here at the expo too.
All right, I'm gonna go catch some waves. You guys have a great day.
You too, John.
All righty. Bye bye.